Strangest videos I've seen in a while, I think in part because of the amount of naked jealousy that it evinces.
The person in this video is trying to respond to a video I made in which I argue that people like Dan McClellan are not an expert on the topics that he talks about because they are outside of his area of expertise. Now, I say that this person is trying to respond to my video because he never actually addresses what I said in my video. He instead creates a straw man of my position and spends his entire video attacking that straw man. In fact, this creator has tried engaging in my content in the past on other topics, and in those attempts, he also misrepresents my position. You would think that a scholar would be more skilled at digesting information and synthesizing it. But anywho, let's see what he has to say.
The basic argument here is that when it comes to people in general, and Dan McClellan in particular, their expertise is limited to the topic of their dissertation, and it is a bad idea or bad form or unwise or unjustified to listen to scholars talk about things outside their area of expertise. But there are several reasons why this argument is confused or outright incorrect and ultimately self-defeating.
Well, I certainly would be embarrassed if that was even remotely what I was saying in my previous video. At no point in my previous video did I ever say that we shouldn't listen to a person talk about a topic outside of their dissertation. In fact, I say the exact opposite and affirm that a person can be well-read and correct on a topic even if what they are talking about is outside of their dissertation. Rather, I was addressing what constitutes calling somebody an expert in an area, and my point was that merely having a PhD in a field does not mean one is an expert in all of the categories within that field.
Dissertation topics are not narrow because a scholar writing it has only a narrow field of knowledge. It's actually the opposite. Dissertation topics are narrow because a scholar knows so much.
The idea that a dissertation is narrow because the scholar just knows so much is just this guy getting himself off by telling everybody how smart he thinks he is. It's just him stroking his own ego, and any scholar who tells you this is just trying to get you to be impressed with them. No, that is not why a dissertation is narrow. A dissertation is narrow because in any field, that field is so broad that a student simply cannot sufficiently cover a topic in that field at the proper depth required of a dissertation unless it is narrow. And this is not just true with dissertations. It's true with most upper level academic writing, whether it be for a journal or for a graduate course or whatever. Going narrow in one's topic allows them to rigorously address all of the contours and the nuances of that issue without wasting time or space on other things that aren't germane to the point. Anybody who has had to do a graduate level writing assignment has probably been told at some point that their topic is too broad or they need to narrow things down a bit. And they aren't told that just because they were so filled with a wide breadth of knowledge. I mean, my God, dude, get over yourself.
But this creator's argument is also just incorrect and missing things in several ways.
By all means, O great enlightened one, please shower me with the wide breadth of your knowledge.
For one, this creator has left off comprehensive exams. In many PhD programs in the humanities in the United States, you're required to take comprehensive exams, 4, 5, or 6 of them, prior to beginning work on your dissertation.
Complaining that I didn't talk about comprehensive exams is dumb for several reasons. First, yeah, humanity programs often require comprehensive exams, but what those exams look like vary greatly from school to school and from program to program. A person pursuing a PhD in theology in Germany and a person pursuing a PhD in theology in California are going to have probably completely different exams focused on different areas that provide different challenges, and merely having to prepare for your specific exam does not make you an expert on every topic related to theology or the Bible. Thus, the fact that you did a comprehensive exam does not make you an expert on every topic that falls under the field you did your PhD in, which was the point of my video. Now, the second reason this is a dumb argument is when I initially wrote out my script for this video, I actually did talk about comprehensive exams along with many other aspects of a doctorate, such as teaching requirements, the selection of a dissertation committee, a dissertation defense, and so on and so forth. However, by the time I got around to talking about dissertations, which was the main focus of my video, I was already over the time limit for TikTok, and since none of those topics were germane to my point at all, I cut them.
The creator's argument is also incorrect because your expertise does not stop developing when you finish your dissertation. It's actually, again, the opposite.
I never said that your expertise stopped developing after your dissertation. In fact, I suggested the opposite. I specifically say in my video that Dan is not an expert in gospel authorship because it was not the topic of his dissertation or any of his peer-reviewed academic work. It's also worth noting that the point of my video was to argue that having letters next to one's name by itself does not indicate being an expert in all subtopics of the field they got their degree in. And I explain this by describing how one gets those letters next to their name. Saying that one can do other things afterwards, which qualifies them as an expert, further shows that my opponent has just fundamentally not understood the topic of my video. My opponent here is fighting phantoms, and I'm having a pretty good time watching him swing at air.
There are so many theologians, philosophers, biblical scholars out there who are world-famous leaders on a particular topic that has absolutely nothing to do with their dissertation or with any of their early work at all.
And Dan McClellan is none of those things when it comes to topics like gospel authorship, seeing as he has never published in that area. This is in contrast to the people I have cited in my responses with him, such as Craig Keener, Craig Evans, Craig Blomberg, Dan Wallace, and so on and so forth, who actually are world-renowned scholars in these areas. So thank you very much for helping me make my point. It's at this point that I will note that any scholar who has any integrity whatsoever will openly admit the limits of their expertise, and they will shy away from being called an expert in an area in which they aren't. They will not engage in this nonsense of trying to convince you how much of a brilliant, enlightened individual they are. Throughout my academic studies, I have been blessed to have humble professors who have always been open about their limits and humble about their expertise. And personally, that's the type of scholar I want to be. Now, if the example set for you of scholarship was putting yourself on a pedestal and puffing yourself up to look good to other people, well, I guess you're welcome to do that, but I'm going to call that out when I see it.
But ultimately, I think this argument is self-defeating. If it's the case that we should only value somebody's opinion in the narrow range of their expertise.
Again, I never said that we shouldn't listen to people on topics outside of their expertise. In fact, I explicitly say in my video that people talking outside of their area of expertise can be absolutely correct and well-read.
And if the narrow range of their expertise is limited to their dissertation topic,
again, never said that.
Then we should not listen to this creator at all because they don't have a completed dissertation.
This would have been a really great zinger if it had even remotely engaged with the content of my video, and if I had not already explicitly said in my video that I'm not an expert on many of the topics I discuss, but I also don't pretend to be.
And it's this fairly obvious incoherence in the argument that leads me to suspect that this is motivated more by jealousy than by anything else.
For somebody who has a degree which supposedly displays their ability to research and think critically, your inability to represent what I'm actually saying is pretty damning, and it's this fairly obvious blunder on your part that leads me to believe that you, like many academics, have a fragile ego. You can't stand the idea of people realizing that you are not everything you are cracked up to be, and you hate the fact that somebody like me, who actually knows how this game is played, is breaking your carefully crafted facade. So you created a quick knee-jerk response video to me in which you attack what your own insecurities thought I was saying instead of engaging with my actual content. But don't worry, whenever you get over yourself, me and my arguments will be sitting here patiently waiting for you to actually engage with them.